It's Friday, March 27th, 2009, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. I'm your host, Radical Russ Belville. Produced and distributed by the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws in Washington, D.C., this is your NORML Daily Audio Stash, the growing truth about cannabis. Welcome to the most popular podcast regarding marijuana in all of America and all the world, featuring interviews with scientists, politicians, doctors, prohibition policy activists, regular cannabis consumers, musicians, and NORML staff and NORML's board of directors, along with music and comedy no other podcast can offer. You can always find out more about our show at our website, stash.normal.org, and continue the education and conversation on our blog as well. We're ending marijuana prohibition with education, one listener at a time. The podcasting and blogging technology for the NORML Daily Audio Stash is provided by Red Aphid Interactive Media. For your professional web design needs, visit redaphid.com. Good day, Stashers, and welcome to the podcast. Apologize for missing you for yesterday's stash, but as I explained, had some family in from out of town, and between that and all the posting from yesterday's huge news stories, I just ran out of time. So we're going to have an extra special stash today, jam-packed with keefy goodness and not a seed in the bowl. First of all, we got some updates here on some medical marijuana legislation that is making it through a couple of states. In Illinois, Senate Bill 1381 got through the Senate Public Health Committee 6-3 in favor. So that will go on to the full Senate. And the companion bill there is HB 2514. If you want to get involved in helping getting that passed, contact Illinois NORML at illinoisnormal.org. Also, in the state of Minnesota, the medical marijuana bill there, House File 292, got through the House Public Safety and Policy Oversight Committee, 9-6 on that vote. And again, that will go before the entire Minnesota House. To get involved there, contact Minnesota Cares at minnesotacares.org. And of course, for all of the legislative updates for the many bills that are going through the state legislatures at this time, check out our activist alerts by clicking on the big map in the top right corner of the Daily Audio Stash blog at stash.normal.org. Speaking of the blog, a slight redesign. If you click on any individual post, you'll find that the web page you get is much, much shorter. It doesn't have all of the hyperlinks, blog roll, feeds, and extra buttons and such. Kind of streamlined. The goal here is to try to pick up some more hits on the Google News service, which has been turning down our stories because they were too long, and I anticipate that's probably because of all the links. So check that out. Just click the title of any one of the posts, and you can see what the new redesigned single page looks like. Also on the Stash blog, some stories we're not going to have time to get to today on the Stash, but you should definitely check them out. The former director of the Drug-Free America Foundation has a nice article up on the Opposing Views blog talking about how he had an epiphany with regard to medical marijuana, how he originally was very against it, but over time came to realize that the government was lying to him. Shock. Check that out on stash.normal.org. Also, our full coverage of today's top story that we're covering in the hemp headlines, President Barack Obama's laughing dismissal of the marijuana legalization question at his online town hall. Some great articles and coverage on that, as well as contact information for you to be able to call President Obama and tell him that you don't think legalizing marijuana is any sort of laughing matter. The phone number at the White House is 202-456-1111. And preliminary reports have told me that they are getting swamped with phone calls. Let's keep swamping them. Coming up on today's Daily Audio Stash, we've got your hemp headlines, including our big story on the Obama administration's reaction to the number one question for the fourth time that they've asked the American public, but also a story that's gotten a little bit buried, the San Francisco dispensary raid that took place a couple days ago. Also, in our interview segments, we've got our last two special segments. The segment from Thursday that we normally run with Terry Joyce in Southern California. She brings along James Tripp, an actor and comedian in Southern California, to talk a little bit about the most recent developments. And in our second interview segment, our regular Friday segment on the odd-numbered Fridays of the month, Steve Bloom from CelebStoner.com is here with the Celebrity Entertainment Report. We'll be talking about Seth Rogen, former SNL original cast member Garrett Morris, and, of course, the number one story on the Celeb Stoner pick for president, Barack Obama. All that plus our daily Toker tunes brought to you by MarijuanaMusicAwards.com, a twofer since we missed yesterday's stash. First, my good friend from Nashville, Tennessee, Chief Greenbud, has a new song for you. And then, stash favorite Big B from the Suburban Noise record stable has a new song from his album that's dropping this coming Tuesday. So check it out in our double shot daily Toker tunes. It's much more stash than anyone should legally be allowed to have. Until we change it, that is. Let's get ready for your normal daily audio stash.
Hello, I'm Paul Stanford from the Hemp and Cannabis Foundation, or THCF. Medical marijuana is legal in 13 states today, and THCF has clinics in 8 of those states. Our doctors help qualified patients obtain an authorization for medical marijuana in their state. Patients are eligible for medical marijuana with a history of either severe chronic pain and or nausea, cancer, AIDS or HIV, hepatitis, glaucoma, seizure disorders like epilepsy, chronic muscle spasms such as multiple sclerosis or asthma, neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's, and gastrointestinal disorders like IBS or Crohn's disease. If you or someone you know has one of these conditions, our doctors will help you obtain a permit for medical marijuana. THCF Medical Clinics has offices in Washington State, Oregon, California, Colorado, Hawaii, Nevada, Montana, and now Michigan. Call 1-800-723-0188 or go to the web at hemp.org or 1-800-723-0188.
Now it's time to take a look at the latest stories about marijuana from news organizations across America and around the world in our normal daily audio stash, Hemp Headlines. President Obama, quote, legalizing marijuana is not a good strategy for growing our economy, end quote. Once again, President Obama's online outreach at whitehouse.gov, the segment called Open for Questions, was opened up to the American people to submit their questions and to vote on them online. The more than 92,000 people who responded either have Cheech and Chong senses of humor, or there is a deep concern in America, undetected by the media, about the decriminalization of marijuana, its possible use for medicinal purposes, and its potential as a new source of tax revenue. Given the opportunity to say what's really on their minds without going through the filter of the mainstream media, people buzzed up a series of questions that seem to suggest broad interest in legalizing marijuana and taxing it. In this moment of national economic crisis, the top 4 questions under the heading of financial security concerned marijuana. On the budget, people voted up questions about marijuana to positions 1 through 4. Marijuana was in the first and third positions under jobs. People boosted a plug for legalizing marijuana to number 2 under healthcare reform, and questions about decriminalizing pot occupied spots 1 and 2 under green jobs and energy. After taking questions lower on the list, President Obama addressed the pot issue head-on.
Can I just interrupt, Jared, before you ask the next question, just to say that, you know, we took votes about which questions were going to be asked. And I think 3 million people voted, or 3.5 million people voted. I have to say that there was one question that was voted on that ranked fairly high, and that was whether legalizing marijuana would improve the economy and job creation. And I don't know what this says about the online audience. But I just want I don't want people to think that this was a fairly popular question. We want to make sure that it was answered. The answer is no. I don't think that is a good strategy to grow our economy. So, all right.
Okay. Thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah, it's only $41 billion a year we're talking about here. That's only less than 1/4 of a taxpayer-funded AIG bailout, so it's not like we're talking about real money here. And there is something funny about the online community. We were a large part of your electoral success. Talk about biting the hand that feeds you. Whether legalizing marijuana would grow our economy is an added benefit, but a moot point. The question is whether the next 18-year-old Barry Obama smoking pot with his buddies should be arrested and have to carry a drug conviction for life. The question is whether the next 21-year-old Barry Obama should have gone to community college instead of Harvard because the government wouldn't give him student loans because of his pot conviction. The question is whether the next 34-year-old Barry Obama watching his mother die of cancer should have to risk arrest to get her the medical marijuana her doctor recommends. Call President Obama at 202-456-1111 and tell him you don't think this issue's a joke and you resent him treating it as if it were. 30 years ago, he could have been just as busted as any of us. Now, President Obama's appearance at the town hall was followed up by the regular press conference by spokesman Robert Gibbs, who addressed this question from the media.
One question.
I'll come back to you toward the end. How about that, Mark?
Robert, in the online town meeting, when the president said he doesn't think legalizing marijuana would give the economy a boost, was he giving a political answer or an economic answer? Does he have economic numbers to back that up?
I'm unaware of a CEA analysis regarding that. I think I think you've heard the president talk about getting us on a path towards sustained economic growth. I don't think he believes that that is part of that plan.
What about medicinal marijuana?
I think I'd point you to the Justice Department on developments on that. The president asked people to ask their questions. Obviously, interests aligned with certain viewpoints did so, and the president wanted to answer the question that no, it was not. He did not think a good economic strategy.
Did that question get the most votes of any?
I will ask Macon and those guys. It is interesting when I think several of those topics were in things like financial stability or green jobs, right? It's unclear what leap of faith one has to make to ask that question in some of those topics.
I mean, no one asked it online, and no one asked.
Oh yeah,
people asked it online.
They voted for it.
Right.
He brought it up on his own. This is what I'm saying. Why did he even bring
April,
it
the concept of the virtual town hall meeting was to have people. No. Let me. You can ask and I'll answer. That the president asked people to go to the website, ask questions of the administration, vote on which questions they wanted to have the president answer, and that he would do so. And as I said, and as Ann said, maybe we should have said clean energy jobs. That would have, I know, that in some topics, look, this is not the first time that an interest group gets on a website and votes many times for their question to be answered, and the president thought he should answer it, and I think he did.
On the serious issue, he made a joke out of it. I mean, there are a lot of questions about legalization of marijuana, not as a job creation program, but just as a serious policy issue. And with what's happening in Mexico now,
he opposes the legals. I'll do this for the president. I didn't. I neither emailed my question in nor voted for it, but the president opposes the legalization of marijuana, and I'll say I did that with without even the slightest bint of laughter.
Robert, while you're on this same subject, can we follow up?
Hold on.
What President learned in this? A lot of the questions were things.
Andy, there was a question pending on why he feels that way about legalizing marijuana.
He does not think that that is. He opposes it. He doesn't think that's the right plan for America.
Gibbs cannot come up with a valid justification because there is none. It is increasingly clear that President Obama's opposition to legalization is ideological, not practical. The administration will not offer up any reasoning because they know they will lose every argument on the issue. Nobody buys the gateway theory anymore. 13 states legalized medical use. California and Colorado have storefront marijuana sales, and the sky did not fall. The amotivational syndrome is disproven by the very man arguing against legalization. The economic realities of prohibition are causing cash-strapped states to question if prohibition is a worthwhile policy. The violence brewing on our southern border is making the idea of legalization more popular than ever. And after 72 years of prohibition, more people smoke marijuana, more people grow marijuana, and the marijuana is better than ever before. By its own standards, prohibition is a utter failure. Here's my theory. President Obama is a recovered pothead. These are the types like my sister-in-law, who smoked quite vigorously back in the day, but then got married, had children, and grew out of marijuana smoking. These recovered types are often those who had a problem with their own use and therefore can't imagine that all use isn't abuse. Like the former tobacco smoker who can't stop telling current smokers how cigarettes will kill them, the recovered pothead believes his life was destined for ruin due to the demon reefer, and just read Barack's book, Dreams from My Father, and won't let that befall another innocent victim. Like the former alcoholic who religiously recites, "One drink is too many and 1,000 are never enough." The recovered pothead believes all marijuana users are addicts, using pot as a crutch for dealing with harsh reality. And, as the laughter at the press conference tells us, this recovered pothead believes he has turned away from childish things and that only immature, non-serious people have any affinity for marijuana. Well, Mr. Obama, there are about 200 million Americans in this country of adult age, and about 25 million of them who will smoke pot at least once this year. It's nice to know that you consider 1/8 of your constituents worthy of mocking and derision. It's nice to see that for the 4th time, you've asked the American people for their input, and the people have overwhelmingly called for marijuana legalization, that you consider the subject so unworthy of discussion that you can't even explain why you're in opposition to legalization besides saying it's not the right plan. Why? It's not like you're not smart enough to explain it. I watched you give a national address explaining the vagaries of the TARP plan and economic stimulus, followed up by an intense explanation of national security priorities in the Middle East, topped off with a discussion of global climate change and the need to hew to scientific and not ideological rationale for government programs. But all you can give us on marijuana legalization is, because I said so. When you talk about pot and politics, it's like a scene from a Lifetime movie network crime drama where the villain is behind the door, holding the pistol, unseen, at the woman's head while she talks to the police through her slightly open door. The cops know something's up, but they have no evidence to take action. She says she's fine, but speaks only in short, nervous sentences, and it seems clear that she's not saying everything she could or should say for fear of that bullet in the brain. So who's got that pistol to your head, Mr. Obama? The pharmaceutical industry not wanting a 50% drop in opioid and benzodiazepine demand? Law enforcement bureaucracies protecting cushy jobs? Pentagon types fond of off-the-books drug money for black ops? The religious right who thinks we're just sinners? Agribusiness for eliminating competition for corn ethanol? Timber industries eliminating competition for paper products? Domestic breweries fighting off a competitive product? I wouldn't be upset at a president telling me he won't support legalization of marijuana. I've come to expect that. What I find inexcusable is treating those of us who ask about it like children undeserving of an adult explanation. drug agents raid San Francisco medical marijuana clinic. San Francisco, California. Federal drug agents raided a medical marijuana facility in San Francisco Wednesday night. The raid occurred at Emmeline's California Cannabis Clinic on Howard Street. DEA spokesman Casey McHenry told us the documents regarding the raid are sealed, so the DEA was not able to give many details. Emmeline's California Cannabis Clinic had a provisional permit, according to Chris Hermes, spokesperson for the Americans for Safe Access, a national advocacy group for medical marijuana issues. Hermes said at least 2 people were taken into custody at the facility. DEA Special Agent in Charge Anthony Williams said in a prepared statement, quote, "Based on our investigation, we believe there are not only violations of federal law, but state law as well," end quote. Williams, who runs the San Francisco field office that covers a territory stretching from Bakersfield to Redding, would not specify the alleged violations. The information was under a court seal. A source in San Francisco city government who was informed about the raid said the DEA's action appeared to be prompted by alleged financial improprieties related to the payment of sales taxes. DEA Special Agent Casey McHenry, spokeswoman for the local office, would not comment on that information. So now the Federal Drug Enforcement Administration is in charge of enforcing California's sales tax laws? I thought that was the job of the California Board of Equalization. In any other business accused of sales tax improprieties, the board would conduct an audit and then press state charges if any applied. The board doesn't send armed stormtroopers to shut down the business and seize all its assets until after a conviction on charges proven in a state court. The Obama administration must now set a clear policy that if the DEA is to be raiding medical marijuana dispensaries in violation of both state and federal law, that the state must be the one to decide if the state laws are being obeyed. We cannot have federal agencies in charge of enforcing state laws. Call President Obama at 202-456-1111. Call your congressman at 202-224-3121. These raids must end. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, quote, "Our insatiable demand for illegal drugs fuels the drug trade," end quote. U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton says the U.S. must take part of the blame for drug-related violence in Mexico. Speaking as she arrived in Mexico, she said America's appetite for drugs and its inability to stop arms crossing the border were helping fuel the violence. Speaking to reporters accompanying her to Mexico City, Mrs. Clinton said, quote, "Our insatiable demand for illegal drugs fuels the drug trade," end quote. Insatiable. That's an adjective meaning impossible to satiate or satisfy. Mrs. Clinton, are you admitting that the United States can never expect to eliminate the demand for marijuana? She also acknowledged that U.S. efforts to ban drugs had so far been unsuccessful in stopping the narcotics trade. She said, quote, "Clearly, what we have been doing has not worked, and it is unfair for our incapacity to be creating a situation where people are holding the Mexican government and people responsible," end quote. Agreed completely, Madam Secretary. So, we have an insatiable demand and an unstoppable supply that is fueling violent gangs intent on overthrowing the Mexican government. I'd make a suggestion that would solve this problem in the stroke of a pen, but I don't want President Obama to laugh at me. Wired magazine. Asking Obama to legalize pot is, quote, "the idiocy of trolls," end quote. Once again, the president opened up the Open for Questions section of whitehouse.gov to elicit questions from the public about government policy in America. Once again, marijuana legalization topped the list of questions voted on by the public. According to Wired magazine, Americans like you, who express their support for ending the most failed federal policy since alcohol prohibition, are nothing but trolls, which on the internet are defined as someone who posts controversial, inflammatory, irrelevant, or off-topic messages in an online community, such as an online discussion forum or chat room, with the primary intent of provoking other users into an emotional response or to generally disrupt normal on-topic discussion." End quote. The first big issue and concern is whether the site will be swarmed with useless questions. The internet is a great tool for harnessing the wisdom of crowds, and also the idiocy of trolls. So far, the trolls are doing okay in at least one area, flooding the page with questions about legalizing pot, a marginally important debate at most times, and a totally trivial one at a time of global economic catastrophe. As of right now, there are 290 questions that have been submitted that include the word marijuana. By comparison, there are 90 that use the word manufacturing and 3 that contain the word broadband. Since the legalized pot fans are flooding the site and voting up each other's questions, they are overwhelming the algorithms that determine which questions matter most to users. Click on the category budget, and all the top questions are about pot. I'm going to do my best to vote them down since, personally, I think what to do about manufacturing in this country is more important. So talking about the legalization and taxation of a $35 billion underground industry is irrelevant and off-topic. Talking about pot legalization, which 2 states are currently considering in their legislatures, is a marginally important debate. Legalization of marijuana for medical purposes has been enacted in 13 states and garnered more votes in the most recent state than did Barack Obama. But somehow it's totally trivial. American appetite for marijuana is fueling 60% of the profits of bloodthirsty Mexican drug gangs on our southern border, but asking about a policy change to shift those profits to American farmers is a useless question. How is it that marijuana, NORML's topic, managed to get 290 questions submitted, yet broadband, Wired's topic, only managed to get 3? Could it be that NORML, the highest trafficked marijuana law reform website, combined with all the others, MPP, DPA, ASA, SSDP, LEAP, Safer, High Times, Marijuana News, and so many others, just gets far more attention on the web than Wired magazine? Nope. That's not it. The Alexa service shows that Wired.com is beating the pants off of NORML.org and MPP.org in terms of internet hits. I think it's safe to assume that Wired readers, by and large, are more technologically savvy than the average normalizer out there, so really, there's no excuse for Wired not being able to out-troll NORML in cyberspace. I guess it does make us call into question the old amotivational syndrome, but not for NORML readers, rather for the Wired readers who seem more interested in surfing their broadband than lobbying for a bigger, better, faster version of it. Another thing you might want to consider, Wired, is that a great deal of your audience does think marijuana legalization is important. Support for legalization runs highest among the well-educated and the younger demographics, both of whom are your target audience. And if my anecdotal experience of 15 years in information technology is typical, then I'd venture to say the internet wouldn't even exist without cannabis consumers. We legalizers understand there isn't a piece of the Bill of Rights, save perhaps the Third Amendment, that isn't infringed by the war on marijuana. We understand that marijuana legalization is completely relevant to the following national concerns. Healthcare. Americans can't afford it. Drug prices through the roof. Pharmaceuticals are killing people. We want to legalize the safest, cheapest, most effective, most versatile medicine on the planet, marijuana. National security. Our southern neighbor is in danger of becoming a failed state run by criminal gangs because we won't legalize the safest illegal intoxicant in America, marijuana. Global climate change. We are enslaved to oil addiction and pumping too much carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. We want to legalize a crop that will pull CO2 from the air and provide a domestic source of fuel, marijuana. The economy. We spend billions of dollars on prohibition. We let billions more in tax revenue go uncollected. We forbid Americans from performing various cannabis-related jobs in a time of mass unemployment. We spend millions on imports of hemp that could be grown domestically. We want to put Americans back to work, cut wasteful and ineffective government programs, raise new revenues, and create a whole new industry by legalizing marijuana. Veterans. Thousands of our troops will be coming home with traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress disorder, which can be treated effectively with medical marijuana. And perhaps we won't have to fight more Middle Eastern wars to protect oil supplies if we had our own hemp biodiesel provided by legalizing marijuana. Green jobs and energy. Hello! Auto industry. Many automakers now use hemp in the production of door panels and other pieces of the assembly, which they have to import at higher prices than if we had domestic hemp production through legalized marijuana. Thousands of dollars of the cost of new American cars relates to the healthcare expenditures by the big three automakers, costs that would be lower if people could treat themselves with legalized marijuana. Education. States all across America are cutting education budgets, even to the point of not supplying paper or school lunches, while marijuana interdiction task forces spend hours in helicopters searching for marijuana plants outdoors, 98% of which turn out to be unsmokable ditchweed because we haven't legalized marijuana. Gay and lesbian issues. HIV/AIDS has devastated the gay and lesbian community, but people in 37 states can be arrested and imprisoned if they try to treat that condition with one of the most effective medicines for controlling neuropathic pain, nausea, and AIDS wasting syndrome because we haven't legalized marijuana. Crime and law enforcement. Police are put in dangerous situations when ordered to engage in violent, no-knock raids on marijuana growers and users. The public distrusts and fears police when their casual marijuana use brands them a suspect in the eyes of the law. Countless crimes go unreported when marijuana consumers fear calling police that will bring attention to their own marijuana crimes. And it goes without saying that we free up scarce law enforcement resources to go after real crime when we legalize marijuana. You name it, I can tell you how legalizing marijuana will help.
I'm a doctor. I'm a lawyer. I'm a journalist.
I'm a student.
I'm a teacher.
I'm a representative.
I have cancer.
The outdated laws of prohibition are more dangerous than the plant itself.
I lost my scholarship.
I was fired.
20 million arrests since 1965. This is getting ridiculous.
Our prisons are overcrowded with non-violent offenders.
We have the opportunity to change.
This is costing our country billions of dollars.
Making my family and I fight in a courtroom is difficult enough when I'm already fighting through chemotherapy.
There's no reason to be scared by tradition anymore.
We can stop this.
We can stop this.
We are the American people.
We can stop this.
And you have our support.
We're old,
young,
straight,
gay. We're every race and nationality.
And we're not going to give up.
You can tax it.
You can regulate it.
Apply age restrictions.
You can create millions of new jobs.
We can save our economy.
President Obama?
It's time for legalization.
Legalization.
Yes.
We
can.
This has been a public service announcement.
Everyone move. When you get your shot night.
Marijuana culture is infused throughout America and the world. As we round out the week, we take a look at the 420 phenomenon in movies, TV, music, and sports with former High Times editor and author of Pot Culture, Steve Bloom, in our celebstoner.com entertainment news. Well, we took a week off to build up some more stories for the celebrity entertainment news, but here he is once again from celebstoner.com, our good friend Steve Bloom. Steve, welcome back to the show.
How are you doing, Russ?
Oh, I'm doing great. Aside from listening to our president the other day, I imagine the reaction at Celeb Stoner's got to be pretty much the same as it is here at the Stash to Obama's recent remarks.
There's definitely disappointment. People are not familiar. Obama did a town hall meeting yesterday, and he took questions from the internet, and the marijuana smokers have been bombarding the White House with questions about legalizing marijuana. It was the number one question. So, finally, Obama goes on record, after all this time with all these different polls and all these different change.org websites and all these different opportunities for marijuana smokers to make their concerns known to the White House, and he finally makes a comment, and obviously it's upset a lot of people. They're hoping to hear, something more optimistic from Obama about the marijuana issue, and it was kind of an odd way that he did it. You know, Obama's sort of getting into trouble a little bit lately for joking and snickering about things that aren't particularly funny.
I like that Special Olympics comment.
Yeah, that, and just a couple of other things, you know, where he just kind of, he tends to, his 60 Minutes interview where he sort of jokes about the economy when it's really serious, and, you know, people are sort of wondering. I mean, that's just, I guess, his way of kind of responding to things, and I certainly appreciated that during the campaign. I thought his sense of humor was, you know, was one of the reasons why I liked him so much. But, you know, now the question is what's so funny about legalizing marijuana? And I will say, though, that in Obama's defense, he has never said, to my knowledge, that he favors legalizing marijuana. The famous quote where he said that he thinks the marijuana law should be decriminalized, he follows that. That was in 2004. He follows that by saying, but I do not think marijuana should be legalized. So it seems like we're asking the wrong question of Obama. Now, had all the questions been, you know, do you think marijuana should be decriminalized, maybe the answer would be different. Maybe he would have said, yeah, I think we should, but, you know, let's work on it. But for whatever reason, I think, you know, legalization is just too big of a step for him and, you know, puts him in a lot of hot water to say, yes, I favor that. And then, of course, things have changed a little bit then since the campaign, you know, with the economy going down the tubes and the California proposal to legalize marijuana and raise so much money. You know, it's really, you know, when the problems on the border with Mexico, you know, it's really raised a lot of questions just in the last couple of months since Obama's been in office. And all of a sudden, you know, a lot of people, a lot of the pundits out there, not just marijuana people, are raising this point. A lot of the, on CNN and all the different, TV channels, newspaper columnists, op-ed writers, you know, everybody's raising this question. Maybe this is one of the solutions to our problems. And the way he decided to do it, it was odd. You know, he could have been a little more serious and gave a serious answer to the question. He gave a one-line answer. He snickered, giggled, made fun of the online community. You know, it wasn't really presidential.
No. Now, you talked a little bit there, briefly about stoner movies, and one of our big favorites in stoner cinema is Seth Rogen. He's got a big interview in Playboy magazine, and I thought that was quite interesting too.
Yeah, it's pretty revealing. He in this current issue of Playboy that's just out in the newsstands, he appears on the cover. He's with a woman. He's kind of looking up her skirt, so to speak, and it's kind of a cute, clever idea. With a fan kind of blowing her dress up, kind of the Marilyn Monroe kind of thing. And so, you know, the Playboy interview is usually pretty in-depth, and one of the first things they ask him about is his use of marijuana and if he ever got into trouble for it. And he said, yeah, when he came to L.A., when he first moved to L.A. about 10 years ago, that's 27, so he was only 17. When I first came to L.A., I got caught smoking weed on a beach in Malibu and had to go to court. It was the craziest thing ever. I was thinking, we're in Los Angeles. There are probably 400 people getting murdered at this second, and these two cops are taking an hour to write up my summons for smoking a joint on a beach. That seemed just so fucking ridiculous to me. You watch my language on your show?
Oh, that's fine.
So, you know, didn't know that. Seth had never gone on record about ever getting busted for marijuana, so, you know, count him among the millions now. The two other revealing things in that interview, one, he made a point about James Franco, his partner in Pineapple Express, who's current stoner of the year according to High Times, and that he doesn't even smoke weed. I hope I haven't ruined it for anybody. Franco and I have never smoked weed together. We always marvel at that. That's not news. I mean, Al Franco really has kind of gone on record he doesn't smoke pot, but I don't think an average person knows that and would have figured, oh, well, he must have smoked with Seth Rogen while they're making Pineapple Express or sometime along the way. But the most interesting comments besides the comment about Franco was the directed at MTV. He really hates MTV, and this goes back to stuff related to Pineapple Express. If you recall, the MTV Movie Awards, he and Franco came out and did a skit, and the skit was to bring out a joint, smoke a fake joint on stage, and do a little excitement at the MTV Awards, like, well, I like to do something a little bit controversial. Well, you know, while that was happening, MTV decided to pull back the camera and not really show what was going on. They really got cold feet. Although it was agreed upon, it was in the script, for whatever reason, they decided last minute to kind of sort of kill the skit. And so Seth's comment is that MTV is insanely stupid. They knew in advance what we were going to do. We sent them the script a week earlier. When they cut away in the middle of it, it made it seem much bigger deal than it was, and effectively ruined the joke. And he said, I'm not offended as a pot smoker, I'm offended as a comedian. And he went on to say, I think they're being hypocritical. He sort of made some comparisons to Real World, which he says is about drinking and fucking. If that's their idea of entertainment, then our goofy little joke about smoking a fake joint should be harmless. And then he goes on to say that when they were doing interviews for Pineapple Express, MTV was a nightmare. He says we were on TRL, they told us, okay, you can't. The producers told them, okay, you can't mention weed at all. And he says that stunned me. The movie's about weed. How would we even describe it? Why are we here if we can't even talk about weed? That's just so silly and absurd to me. It's like bringing on the cast of the Transformers and telling them you can't talk about robots. It's a funny bit. And furthermore, he took a shot at TRL, which is now no more, and he says, we were on TRL, which, thank God, is over. I never want to go on that fucking show again. So, he took, the right shots in MTV, and, as usual, Seth Rogen makes, some really brash comments like he does on late night TV shows all the time.
And one other story that I found on your site that was really fascinating to me as a kid who grew up watching classic Saturday Night Live was your unpublished interview with Garrett Morris, the forgotten original cast member.
Exactly. Garrett Morris was one of the guys who was there with Chevy Chase and Gilda Radner and the original cast, John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd, and he was the original African-American character on the show. And so I recently saw a clip of him talking about marijuana, and he went at length to, basically ask some questions about why marijuana is illegal, and that sparked this sort of interest in, his comments are, it's absolutely the right thing to have marijuana legalized. I don't understand why it was ever made illegal. Nobody's ever died from smoking a joint. And so, that kind of got me thinking to, back when I started as a journalist in the late 70s, and I was pitching stories around, and I thought, well, Garrett Morris might be a good story because he didn't really get a lot of publicity, and all the other cast members were getting a lot of publicity for their work on Saturday Night Live. So I pitched an article to Rolling Stone, and I was just a young writer and had never written for Rolling Stone. And I thought, this might be a good one. And I actually had the opportunity. They gave me the assignment, and I actually went backstage, and I spent about a half hour, an hour with Garrett Morris, and he was a fun guy. And interestingly, one of the first things that happened was he asked me if I had any coke. And I said no, and he says, well, I hope you don't mind if I do some, and he does some right in front of me. It's pretty funny.
That's the 70s, man.
I've been trying to rack my brain to remember whether I actually did coke with Garrett Morris, and I just cannot remember whether he passed it to me or not, or whether I just sat there and I watched. And most likely I think I sat there and I watched because I was probably just a little stunned, but that was the way things were backstage in SAO those days. And so, so he, he just gave me a really nice little interview, and mostly speaking about, his role as the black man on the show, and how people would make a lot of issues about things that he would do, but wouldn't make issues about, a lot of what the other characters would do on the show, and so, I wrote the piece, and I submitted it to Rolling Stone, and for whatever their reasons, they decided not to run it. So all these years later, I took the opportunity at Celeb Stoner to publish this piece.
And thinking back to Garrett Morris, I think the two things I'll always remember of Garrett Morris on SNL were the news for the hard of hearing, loved that, and his little song where he says, "I'm going to get me a shotgun and kill all the whiteys I see." That's one of my favorite ones.
Garrett had a lot of edge. He wasn't considered the funny guy in that show, but he certainly had a lot of edge.
And what a talent. A lot of people don't know he's a classically trained opera performer. I mean, the guy's really, really talented.
Yeah, he was he acted in theater. He came out of New Orleans. I think that was part of, his intensity level as well.
Now, as we wrap up here, do you have one of your poker tournaments happening this weekend?
Yeah, thanks for letting me make the point. We have our monthly Celeb Stoner poker tournament in association with Reefer Poker this weekend. It's taking place Saturday at 4:20. It's the $200 free roll, so you get to start with the $200, and play online poker. It's a lot of fun. We had a lot of people last time. We're hoping to have a really big crowd this time. And sign up today. Go to Celeb Stoner, and it's right at the top of the page. The banner, it's clicking in red. Sign up today.
All right. Well, Steve Bloom's the webmaster of celebstoner.com and a former editor at High Times Magazine, and joins us every other week for our Celeb Stoner Entertainment Report. Thanks for being here, Steve.
Thanks a lot, Russ.
Just say no.
No matter what you call it, it's a huge part of popular culture.
Where'd you learn that, Cheech? Drug school.
You don't need weed school. You just need a copy of the new book, Pot Culture, the A to Z Guide to Stoner Language and Life.
Hey, this is great, man.
Even if you never smoked marijuana.
I never used marijuana. Sorry.
Don't think you smoked marijuana.
I experimented with marijuana a time or two and didn't inhale.
Or you used to smoke marijuana.
I inhaled frequently. That was the point.
Pot Culture by former High Times editor Steve Bloom and Shirley Halperin will answer every question you ever had about marijuana culture.
Has that marijuana made it back up here yet?
Check out Pot Culture, the A to Z Guide to Stoner Language and Life at Amazon.com or visit potculturebook.com today.
Too bad, man. I just stopped smoking yesterday.
The battle to end adult marijuana prohibition can sometimes seem endlessly frustrating and impossible to overcome. One way we bond as a community and draw strength to continue is by rejuvenating our spirit through art and music. The Marijuana Music Awards exist to recognize those sonic artists in all genres of music who feature a ganja-friendly message to motivate and inspire all the cannabis community. Our daily Toker Tunes, brought to you by MarijuanaMusicAwards.com, feature the finest in blues, rock, jazz, hip-hop, rap, reggae, country, bluegrass, and dance music to enhance that 420 feeling and refresh all you stashers for another day on the front lines of the drug war. Enjoy this cut from MarijuanaMusicAwards.com and visit our blog at stash.normal.org to learn how you can vote for your favorites and enter your Toker Tunes in the 2009 Marijuana Music Awards. Yesterday was Rockin' Thursday from Daily Toker Tunes, brought to you by MarijuanaMusicAwards.com. So I'm going to play that song today since we missed it yesterday. And it's the return of one of my favorites, Chief Greenbud, with his great new song which we can all relate to, I Just Want to Get High. The Chief, one of the finest country rock musicians coming out of Tennessee, is currently nominated in both 2009 Marijuana Music Awards and the 2009 High Times Doobie Awards. After winning 2 Global Marijuana Music Awards in 2008, Chief Greenbud is currently working on his second CD and is currently in high demand in the underground concert and festival circuit. Speaking of, he will be appearing in Portland, Oregon at the Pioneer Courthouse Square for the Global Cannabis March, the 10th annual, taking place out of Portland, Oregon. Can't wait to see my good buddy Chief. With his unique mix of talent in both music and comedy lyrics, Chief Greenbud makes for addictive listening. To vote for the Chief in his upcoming award nominations, check out myspace.com/CGB. And registered stashers, you'll get an MP3 download of this song. It's Chief Greenbud with I Just Want to Get High.
I've got a problem, I don't know what to do. Every time I smoke weed, my girl comes unglued. She gets her granny panties all up in a wad. If I fire up a bowl of some really good pot, now I don't want to offend her little delicate nose, but I need a buzz and that's just how it goes. So when she's got a fucking problem that I want to get stoned, I start contemplating about living alone. 'Cause I just want to get high. That's what I really want. I just want to get high. like to smoke a lot. I can't believe she doesn't realize that I just want to get high. I've got a question and I need to know. It may sound kind of funny, but here I go. How did I end up with a girl that doesn't like to get baked? It's like putting dill pickles on your birthday cake. I guess it's time for me to make a choice. Do I quit smoking weed or just put up with her noise? Guess a little bit of bitching beats being alone. And I can handle anything as long as I'm stoned. 'Cause I just want to get high. That's what I really want. I just want to get high. I like to smoke a lot. I can't believe she doesn't realize. I just can't believe it. I just want to get high. I just want to get high. I just want to get high. I think I need to get high. I just want to get high. I really want to get high. I just want to get high. I fucking need to get high. I just want to get high. I just want to get high.
America's most notorious white trash renegade returns with his fourth album, American Underdog, which dropped this week. Raw and honest as always, Big B's brand of outlaw hip-hop has returned with a few new tricks, ensuring it will go down as one of Suburban Noise's best albums. The new album features the Cottonmouth Kings and includes the hugely popular song, Sinner, being featured as today's Toker tune. In his music, Big B confronts personal demons, touts his perseverance in the rap game, and speaks of the days of street hustling. He's evolved musically to be one of the most diverse artists in the underground scene. Big B has earned his fans by touring non-stop with everyone from Tech 9 to the sold-out Strange Noise tour to Cottonmouth Kings. High-energy artist Big B will soon be on the Bring the Noise tour, and later in the year will be on the Jägermeister tour. This 330-pound hip-hop outlaw from Las Vegas, tattooed from neck to knees, is ready to kick ass and take names as one true American underdog. To grab Big B's new CD, American Underdog, check out suburbannoiserecords.com or Big B's space at myspace.com/hooliganbigb and feedbigb.com and music shops internationally. And registered stashers, you can get yourself an MP3 download of this song. It's Big B with Sinner.
I live the life of a sinner, but when it comes to other women, you're my only one, hun, so this is the beginning. Let's go, let's live the life of a sinner, and we'll be living on the run, right here in the California sun.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for accepting this collect call, and to tell you what you're about to hear is sincere. It's not the drugs or the alcohol. I know you said that it had to end. I don't expect you to bail me out again, but right now, girl, you're my only friend. It's true, I did you wrong for way too long, but that's the past, so let's move on. It's a new song, so let it play on and on, from dusk to dawn. Tell the neighbors complain, or the cops come.
Oh, the life of a sinner
in the California sun.
I know, I live the life of a sinner, but when it comes to other women, you're my only one, hun, so this is the beginning. Let's go, let's live the life of a sinner, and we'll be living on the run, right here in the California sun.
I wouldn't blame you if you just hung up. I understand that you're getting fed up. I can't say that this is the last time that this will happen, but I try, oh yes I try. I say I wanna change, but I lie, oh yes I lie. And you know I stay consistent, yeah I ain't perfect, but at least I admit it. And I ain't ever gonna change, and don't forget it.
I know, I live the life of a sinner. But when it comes to other women, you're my only one, hun, so this is the beginning. Let's go, let's live the life of a sinner. And we'll be living on the run, right here in the California sun. Da-da, 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 da-da.
Why don't you come take a trip on the dark side? Just me and you sitting side by side. You can't knock it till you seen it. I know I said this be the last time, but this time I mean it. So let your hair down, let your shoes get dirty. Let's take it slow, yo, there's no need to hurry. I'ma hold your hand the whole way, so girl, don't worry. No, don't worry. No, don't worry.
I live the life of a sinner. But when it comes to other women, you're my only one, hun, so this is the beginning. Let's go, let's live the life of a sinner. And we'll be living on the run, right here in the California sun. Let's go, let's live the life of a sinner. And we'll be living on the run, right here in the California sun.
Hi, this is Alan St. Pierre, Executive Director of NORML. We are the oldest, largest, and best-known marijuana law reform organization in America, and it's all because of your support. Take some time to join NORML at www.norml.org. Your membership supports this podcast, our websites, our policy research and analysis, and our annual conferences. Changing marijuana laws is a grassroots effort, and it starts with you, the stakeholder. Join NORML today and add your voice to the millions of cannabis consumers who demand equality with our beer-drinking friends.
Weed.
That's Hooey Valley, hooey-ha.
Weed.
Where any office boy or young mechanic.
Now it's time for a report from the epicenter of American cannabis culture with our Southern California correspondent. You know her from ComedyNation.com and her appearance as a finalist on Season 1 of NBC's Last Comic Standing. It's our friend, cannabis comedian and marijuana activist, the lovely and talented Terry Joyce. Been quite a busy day in marijuana law reform, and one story that kind of got buried beneath the Obama story today is the new raid in San Francisco that took place at Emmeline's, and we've covered that up on the stash. So we go back to California to talk to our California correspondent, Terry Joyce. Hey, Terry, how you doing today?
I am doing great today. I'm doing great. As a matter of fact, I was, looking in the paper, and it's amazing how many apartments are for rent now. And there was an apartment that was Ocean View apartment for rent, bad credit, okay. I'm like, great. Finally, they're coming down to my speed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's really nice. I guess that's the upside of the real estate market, huh?
Oh yeah, the upside is that if you have bad credit, you're in.
You're in.
You know, I mean, everybody else does too, so they gotta let us start from brand new. So.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Now, I know you're a long ways away from San Francisco and what's happening up there with the latest raid, but what's the reaction from some of the dispensary community down there in LA to this latest raid?
Well, it's still recent. I did speak with a friend of mine, and he mentioned that there was the raid. What is exactly concerning that? Are they not following the state guidelines?
Yeah, that's the word we're getting out. They're still pretty tight-lipped about it. The DEA hasn't released much as far as an official statement, but people in the city of San Francisco who are called about the raids, claim that the administration's claim is that this dispensary wasn't somehow, following California sales tax regulations. That's supposedly the justification that allows it to be they're in violation of state law, and therefore, Holder's statement that they would only bust them if they're in violation of both federal and state law supposedly covers this raid.
Which means you have to pay your taxes.
You do have to pay your taxes, but last thing I checked, that was up to the California Board of Equalization to take care of, wasn't it?
I guess so.
Yeah, it's kind of strange when you think about having the feds come in to enforce sales tax laws for a state, but that seems to be what they're doing.
Yeah, and they're wasting more money again. Right?
Again, yeah, wasting more money.
Well, the tax laws are probably one way that will make it legal. As a matter of fact, I think in San Francisco Assemblyman Tom Amiano, he's actually introduced a bill that would legalize and tax marijuana for recreational use.
Oh yeah,
which is a good thing because it's the only way I use it.
and let's tell everyone who we're talking to here, Terry.
Oh yeah. Who is that man?
Who is that masked man?
This is a friend of mine. His name is James Tripp, and he's a very funny comedian and actor. And we work often. We've done a lot of free speech shows together on ComedyNation.com and Strike TV. And so I want to welcome James Tripp. He's a medical marijuana supporter and a marijuana supporter in general.
All right, James, how you doing?
I consider it my patriotic duty. A lot of the country's primary documents are written on hemp.
Absolutely. And what do you think about this latest call? The Obama administration opened up this, open for questions online. And once again, for the fourth time, questions about legalizing marijuana dominated the discussion. And he kind of, joked about it and set it aside as if it weren't some sort of serious topic. How do you feel about that, James?
Well, I think President Obama is very careful with what he says, and what he says is not always what he thinks. And he was just asked the question whether it should be used to generate revenue, and he said that wasn't something he was in favor of. But he didn't say, he didn't go further than that. He could have gone further and said things. I mean, because in fact, California is looking at marijuana to generate revenue. They did a study, and they estimated that they could raise $1.3 billion in taxes annually, in addition to a $50 levy per ounce of any retail sales of marijuana. The current legislation would make marijuana the same as alcohol or drugs. You'd need to be 21. You'd be able to possess it, grow it, sell it, and it would be taxed. The current economic situation is really making people look at this. What one depression takes away, another gives back.
I guess so. And what a strange thing it is in the state of California to have the medical marijuana like you've got, and it's not been causing any problems for anyone, and the storefront dispensaries by and large are operating as intended and under state guidelines. How strange is it then to have that going on and have a situation where marijuana almost seems legal in California, and to have a governor who had used marijuana on camera coming out and saying this is a bad idea? That's the strangest thing to me.
Well, it's just the hypocrisy of our public representatives. They're afraid to say anything. The whole problem with this country is we do everything for kids. It's like we got to keep the kids away from marijuana. Well, the fact is, it's easier for a kid to get a joint than it is for him to get a beer.
Yeah.
And I wish I knew that kid. But, it really is. If you regulate it, it'll make it tougher for kids to get it.
Yeah.
And so that's a false argument. They always say, well, we can't do it, or it's a gateway drug, which is ridiculous.
Yeah. I often point out that we very rarely, if ever, see Bacardi 151 dealers in high school hallways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. It's been proven that it's easier for a kid to get a joint than it is for him to get a liquor.
Yeah.
So that's a false argument.
So with this Amiano bill, making its way through the California Assembly, politically speaking, a lot of the politicians, are afraid of standing up for something like this, but among the people of California, this would seem to be a very popular position. Is the public in California ready for this, you think?
Absolutely.
The public, I think, is probably, I don't know if the elected leadership is. I mean, they're just afraid, to take a stand on this because they look down the line and fear that some future opponent will brand them as, they're into drugs or they don't protect the children.
Yeah.
So it's really the political will that's lacking. I don't think it's the citizens' will.
So James, you're an actor and a comedian in Los Angeles. When did you get involved with the cannabis community, and what does it mean to you to be an activist in this fight?
Well, I mean, I think it's just a question of rights, and I think it's really a question of interest groups that managed to get some legislation that's stuck around for 75 years, 80 years. And I really, I mean, it's ridiculous to legislate against a plant. It's just crazy. It's and it could be a cash crop. It could, it could be used for paper. I mean, there's so many uses for hemp, that it's foolish, I mean, for years, that's what everything was written on. Everything was written on hemp,
Mm-hmm.
We wouldn't have to cut down as many trees. It's just good ecology.
Yeah. And that's, I think, one of the... Go ahead, Terry.
Oh, I was going to interject. A friend of mine, reiterated to me that, Lincoln, has a little right where he, smokes, like the sweet, hemp from his pipe. And I was thinking, like, maybe he just went, maybe we should free the slaves.
Well,
yeah.
I hate to have to break some bad news to you, Terry. That quote, supposedly of Lincoln talking about smoking weed and playing his harmonica, I believe it is not, it's not true.
It's not true?
Nope. The harmonica that Lincoln, supposedly talks about in that quote was invented long after Lincoln was dead. Yeah. There's another one going around too that supposedly says Abraham Lincoln said that prohibition was the greatest form of intemperance, an anti-prohibition quote. This was also a made-up quote. Lincoln never said it. It was created by abolitionists, or it was created by the pro-slavery forces in Georgia during the Civil War to try to sway votes away from Lincoln. So, and I'm upset about it too. There's two of my favorite quotes too.
I know. How could they do that to us?
Oh, well, we've still got Jefferson and Washington and Adams and all those other guys who talked about hemp, so I think we're still okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those guys grew it and they smoked it. I mean, they wrote letters about it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's plenty of the letters in the National Archives we can see where Jefferson and Washington both had talked about separating the male plants from the female plants, and there's only really one good reason to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think if those guys were around today, they'd be a little surprised.
I
think they'd think it's pretty stupid.
Yeah. I often try to imagine what it would be like trying to convince Ben Franklin he had to pee in a cup to get a job. How do you construct that argument?
Whoever asked him.
So, James, before we let you go here, I want to give you a chance to tell folks about your career, what you're doing lately, and if you're on the web, how people can get in touch with you.
Yeah, well, on the web, I have a blog, which is at jamestripp.blogspot.com, or you can look me up on MySpace or Facebook, just James Tripp with 2 T's.
Okay. All right. Well, James Tripp is a comedian and actor working and living in Los Angeles, California, and a friend of our cannabis correspondent, Terry Joyce. And Terry, how about yourself? Anything you want to tell our listeners before we go?
Well, I'm going to be going on a tour very soon.
Oh, good.
In the last 2 weeks of April, and I'm going through with the Sexy Misfits.
Oh.
We will be in Spokane, Washington, Montana, and then we're going to come on down to Southern Oregon, and also be in Astoria. So I might be able to come and visit you, Radical.
I'll come visit you up in Astoria. I have friends that live there, so we'll make it that way.
That would be great.
And you guys, both of you, have any plans for April 20th, 420?
420.
Chances are I'll be doing something.
Chances are I'll be doing something. I don't really have. I'm going to be on the road out of town at that time.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to have to toke up in, Oregon or Washington somewhere. Maybe Montana, which is now. I'll be smoking out with the Cowboys.
There you go. And James, you?
Well, I have no plans at this time, specifically. But I will be doing something on that day.
I'm sure you will. All right. Well, James Tripp and Terry Joyce, thanks again for joining us here on the Daily Audio Stash.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for downloading the NORML Daily Audio Stash, the growing truth about cannabis. We are produced by the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws in Washington, D.C. Our executive producer is Alan St. Pierre. Our deputy director is Paul Armentano. Our webmaster is Brian Judy. And web production is provided by Red Aphid Interactive Media. As always, you can catch up on the latest information about marijuana at www.norml.org. And you can interact and download from our Audio Stash blog at stash.norml.org. For everyone here at NORML, I'm your host, Radical Russ Belville, hoping all your harvests are bountiful and your encounters with law enforcement are non-existent. We leave you today with another one of our cannabis quotes brought to us by Mr. Spoff. This one from Patrick Henry, famous for his "Give me liberty or give me death" speech, who said, quote, "It is natural to man to indulge in the illusions of hope. We are apt to shut our eyes against a painful truth and listen to the song of that siren till she transforms us into beasts. Is this the part of wise men, engaged in a great and arduous struggle for liberty? Are we disposed to be of the number of those who, having eyes, see not, and having ears, hear not, the things which so nearly concern their temporal salvation? For my part, whatever anguish of spirit it may cost, I am willing to know the whole truth, to know the worst, and provide for it." End quote. Thanks for downloading the podcast, everyone. We'll be back next week with more news and interviews you can use for the cannabis community. Send your comments and suggestions to stash@norml.org. And until next time, take care of each other, tokers.